Hello, this is HookedByHappenstance. I'm Kendra, and it is time for an annual event here at HookedByHappenstance. It is time for the Makes Monday, where we discuss the county fair. So, welcome to County Fair 2019. Now, I had hoped to be more prolific than I was when it came to our county fair, but I just didn't have the opportunity to finish all the things I had planned. So a lot of the things I'm going to talk about you've seen in the Fairly Prepared videos, which got abbreviated a little. But these are not going to be necessarily new things. These are just things that I was able to get done. Because the month of July disappeared from my life. At the very beginning of the month, my father-in-law died in California very unexpectedly. And so we rushed out there, and my husband was gone the majority of the month, and me and my kids were gone a lot of the month. And in between there, we had to not only get my fair projects done, but more importantly, my daughter's 4-H projects done for the year, because 4-H is something she's very active in, and obviously the fair is like a big deal, right? So we did thankfully manage to get all of her stuff, or everything we probably would have gotten done even if we had planned for it, done. Some of the vegetables and flowers and things didn't make it because the weather in Kansas was weird this spring and early summer, and so everybody's gardens are delayed. We happen to have red tomatoes, which is, I guess, not a thing that a lot of people in the county are experiencing yet. Everyone's still just trying to get them to ripen up. So we made her stuff happen, which meant that my items suffered. There was actually about 35 minutes to an hour where I just thought I wasn't going to enter the fair at all because I misread the time that open class items were due. I knew that we had to like 8:30 on the day of turning things in to get our 4-H items there, and we had some of the club things like banner and centerpiece and things that needed to be taken at a different time than the individual items. And so we're finishing up details. I mean, there's a chance we would have been doing some things at the last minute, but not nearly as many as we were because we were trying to fit a lot of her projects and club projects in the limited time we had between when we got back from California and when the fair started, which was not very long at all. It was like a week. And we were, tired from all the travel and just, exhausted from all of the funeraling and, that stuff. So we were at the very end trying to get these club projects finished, and then somebody in my family read the schedule and informed me that you actually needed to have open class items in at like 6, and it was 5:15, 5:20-ish, and we live half an hour from the place they needed to be turned in. So my husband jumps in the car with 2 of our kids who were entering open class items and took them up there so that their items could for sure get entered. He didn't enter anything because all of his entries would have been vegetables. And like I said, our garden was very behind. So the only vegetables that were like worthy of going went with my daughter, who had put, like, she's been working the garden. So they were equally hers, but she got first dibs basically on the good stuff for her 4-H projects. So he didn't enter anything, but he got our 2 sons up there so that they could enter stuff. And I just figured I would be out of luck this year. I said, I guess the worst thing about that would be that I wouldn't make this video, but really the worst thing would be that I would be very sad because I put energy into trying to get things done. But thankfully, we finished up the things we needed to do, hopped in the car, and I was going to just not bring my stuff with me. But then I said, I'm going to gather what I have that's already like ready to go, because there was a stack that was done and put together without any effort. I'm like, I'm just going to take this with me, and if for some reason they'll let me turn it in, I will turn in my stuff, and that will be good. So we get up there to turn in some of the things, and I'm talking to the people, and I'm like, hey, my stuff's in the car. I know it's really late. Like, could I turn it in? And they're like, oh, totally. So that was really nice, and I'm glad I brought it. And so I filled out the paperwork all really quick. I felt bad that I was doing it at the last minute for them, but I end up filling out a lot of the paperwork myself anyways. Like, I filled out my own name cards and all the stuff. So I'm a very low maintenance fair entrant, other than the fact that I tend to enter a lot of things. Ultimately, I entered 7 things this year. So I think last year it was many, many, many more than that, but 7 is what I got completed. And most of them are large items, so that I at least feel good. Like the number of skeins of yarn, or I haven't actually weighed it. I wonder how many grams of yarn I used. Anyways, the amount that I crocheted to make my fair projects, I feel very good about. And I feel very good overall about how my showing went. The thing I do not feel very good about is there are no comments on the back of the cards. So there are cards that go with them, like entry cards, that say, like, your name and stuff. And then they show, like, what division and class and things. And then you get a ribbon. Well, ordinarily on the back of this card, there would be something like nice tension, or bad seams, or work on such and such, or something, especially if you didn't get a blue ribbon. Now, this is when it's worth noting, I know I talk a lot about 4-H things for the fact I'm not showing you anything 4-H, but in 4-H, the way that the grading process for ribbons goes is that it's based on quality. So many people can get a top placing, which in 4-H is actually purple. And then blue is first, like, is the next level down, which means that it's practically perfect. And, like, lots of people can get that blue ribbon. Red means it has errors in it that need to be corrected. And again, lots of people can get that. And then a white ribbon means, like, you had some glaring errors. So, or you didn't, like, meet all of the requirements, like, at all. Like half of whatever you needed to bring in is missing, is usually why you get a white. Now, in open class, things work out a little bit differently in that you are judged directly in competition with the other people who enter your division and class. So divisions are broad arching things like textiles, which is all of the sewing and fabric related things, separate from quilting. Quilting has its own. So in, like, the fiber arts realm, there is a quilting section, which I have never entered into because I don't want to play that game. I've gone to see their quilt judging. I don't want to get involved in that. There is textiles, which is garment sewing. In my case, my tote bag fell into that. There's also, like, some other different sewing categories that involve things you would make with fabrics and home goods, hand embroidery, that sort of thing. Then there is fiber arts, which covers knitting and crochet. And then under those broad categories, you end up with individual classes. Now, those classes are going to be the actual thing that you're entering. Like, there's sweater, crochet. There's also another class that is sweater, knitted. So that gives you kind of an idea. And there's a long list, and it all comes in the fair book, so I knew in advance what was available for me to enter. So I entered all those things. Now, last year, I did pretty well overall. I was very happy, and I finally got a Grand Champion ribbon, which I had been waiting for years. But I got a Grand Champion in textiles, which was cool, but, like, I make and sell project bags, so, I mean, one would hope that my skills would be up to snuff enough to maybe win a Grand Champion in that category. But either way, it was really cool to win Grand Champion textiles last year. I did not win Grand Champion textiles this year, but by the look of it, they only gave out one Grand Champion medal, or ribbon, not medal, to all of the things that were in that display case, which covered textiles and fiber arts. It's kind of a mismatch. It really depends on the judge you get, how all of the awards shake out, and things like if you get comments or not. So it's very, you don't know what you're getting every year, which is kind of part of the fun, that you can't just rely on what's going to happen. But anyways, that is all to say that I have a stack next to me of 7 items with placings, and I will talk you through them. A lot of these projects you've already seen completed, though some of them you haven't seen completed since I wove in ends and stuff, because I had a bunch of them stacked to film a fairly prepared when, I don't know, life went off the rails a bit. But we are attempting to right the ship and get life back on the rails, and part of that is sharing these items with you so that I can move forward. So, the first thing at the top of my stack is actually the one thing that got entered in the textiles division, which is this bag. It is one of my zipper bags. This actually, I pulled this directly out of the shop. If you're interested, there are more bags in this print. It says, "Let your dreams take flight." They have these adorable hot air balloons, and there's like this purple scroll work print in the inside, and then the boxed bottom as usual, handle. It even has one of my little tags on it. I wasn't sure how that was gonna, if or how that was gonna factor in to the judging. Obviously, again, I don't know because there was nothing on it, but I did get a blue ribbon. So this was the only thing entered in the tote bag category this year. In years past, this is actually a category that seems to have a lot of interest, but this year I was the only one. Note, however, that just because you are the only person to enter a class does not mean you are guaranteed a blue ribbon, and we will see that coming up. Ordinarily, there would be some comments explaining why that didn't happen if you were the only one in the class, because you would think that automatically you'd like win, but if they decide there's too many errors, you still don't. So, anyways, the next thing is actually a third place ribbon. So I got this white third place ribbon, and this was in Baby Afghan Crocheted. This is a pattern. Oh, there's a bug on me. The outdoors is attacking. Okay, so this is a pattern of my own making. I forget exactly what I'm going to call it. It will eventually be released. This was actually one of my many tests of the pattern. This is the same pattern I used for my Astropop baby blanket, if you've seen that. This is made out of some Red Heart Super Saver in the color Mirage, which I really don't understand for like the country blue and cream and brown. It doesn't look mirage-y at all to me, but you know, I don't name the yarns. So there was that, and then the outside is some Red Heart with Love Sparkle, something like that. It's the Red Heart sparkly one, and it just kind of plays off the brown. It has a bunch of different textures to it. The first place Afghan and Baby Afghan went to a simple square. It wasn't exactly a granny square. It was a granny square made out of shells, so it worked in a granny pattern, but it was all made out of shells, and it was pretty loosely done for the weight of yarn. I'm guessing they probably used a K. By the look of it, it might have even been a little bigger, and they just did a simple thing. It was all one color, looked like one skein of yarn. It was nice. It was pretty. It's hard to tell in the cases because they kind of like fold the things up and lay them out, so you can't really tell things like tension, or sometimes you'll see something and it looks like it would be worthy of a really high rating, but it's not. And so I assume there's then an error, but you obviously can't tell because you can't like look at it up close. But I wasn't at all mad about my third place on this, because out of the three that were there, it deserved third. The second place one was one of those, it's a Red Heart free pattern. It's a round blanket, and then it has owls all over it and like branches and stuff. Now all of those are done. I've looked at it because I've thought about making it several times from the time I learned to crochet. And basically the owls and stuff are all appliqued on, and that is just too much work. I don't have time for that. So I will never be making one of those. But they're very pretty, and it was a nice specimen of it. The owls looked nice. Their eyes weren't like freakish or anything, which happens sometimes when you make owl motify things. So third place, Baby Afghan, which was not terrible considering baby Afghans are not my favorite thing, but I wanted to test out the pattern again, and that was an enjoyable project. Next is this, which got second place. This was a second place, though it was uncontested. It was a sweater, crocheted, and it's this purple one. This is made out of, oh gosh, I cannot remember now. These are yarns that I was gifted. I talked about what yarns they were in my Fairly Prepared videos. I'm fairly certain. I think it's Knit Picks something or other. Soft, not soft and shiny. It's a Knit Picks, the purples. This is all yarn that I got from Carla, I'm fairly certain. And it's a short sleeve sweater. I'm going to assume that the red came from the way that my jog is down the side, which I get that when it's flat probably looks pretty bad. But I am very large chested, and because of that, when I wear this the way that it all skews on my body when the stitches are on, this jog is less noticeable than a straight seam was gonna be. I tried it on as I was working on it because I was trying to decide how I wanted to kind of work some of those things out, and I figured out that that was going to be the best because it like compensated for the like shape of my body, which doesn't always translate, I guess, when you're judging and looking at proportions on things. I have turned in some things in the past and had them comment on the proportions of like a sweater or something that fit me really, really well. However, I recognize when you see it, like the arm to the body ratio might not look right because there's no person inside it. But this is the sweater, and the top has like kind of lacy bits. I don't know if you can see me through it. But now that this is done at the fair, it can be added into my regular rotation, and I am excited to get to wear this. So that will be on my person here shortly. Next, let's do the other garment. Also, whoop, they put these straight pins to hold the little cards on, which, I mean, I guess it's nice and then the cards don't get separated. But the straight pins then get stuck in everything, and it's just, I don't know. I'm always worried that I'm going to catch it on a ply of yarn and it's going to cause me a problem. But anyways, we have another blue. This was for dress crocheted. This is made out of a number of different yarns. All of these were gifted to me by Carla. This is mostly DK, I believe, with I think one of these yarns is fingering. The bodice of this dress was made out of a gradient set of mini skeins, and then I just kind of went and through this big box of yarn that Carla had sent me and found other colors that I kind of thought went with it, and I just kind of kept going, striping them intermittently, using different stitch patterns. It's kind of a sampler, but in a dress. And I used kind of an assortment of everything that came in that box that matched. And so, again, this I am really, really looking forward to wearing. It was really fun to make, and I think it looks really cute on. I took a bunch of pictures in it when I first finished it, but I obviously haven't worn it because this has kind of an assortment of fiber contents to it, which I don't really mind, even in the wearing process, even if things like stretch in different ways. Because of the format of this dress, it's totally not going to be a problem. In fact, it turned out really nice when I washed it, and all of the lace in this skirt, the way it opened up, was just amazing because of the fiber contents that are in it. However, I'm not sure if there's going to be any sort of pilling or just wear that's going to occur in different places. I don't even know where those would be, but like, you just never know. So I try not to actually wear the garments that I make before the fair because they don't want them to show up with any wear and tear on them. So this can now get put in the rotation, and I can wear it to my little heart's content, which means y'all probably see that a fair amount. I just need to find the right thing to wear underneath it. I think I'm going to make like a slip dress that goes underneath it, like a shift. I had actually been trying to do that. If you all follow me on Instagram and saw my space dress, it began as me using the dark gray fabric from that to make an underdress for this, and I cut it out and put it on, and it didn't quite fit right, so I needed to add some like panels to it to make it wider. And the fabric that I had that I thought matched it the best was the space fabric, and so it went from being a shift for this outfit to being a space dress, which I'm not mad about. I love that dress. So okay, the next thing on the pile is one that you've seen before. This is my Decadent Frenchie hat. I got a blue ribbon on this as well. This was for Crochet Other article, and so I think it says like hat, scarf, other. Now I have entered many different things in the other category, but like, you know what they're really looking for? They want you to make a hat or a scarf. That's what they're looking for. So I've just decided that now I make like a hat to go in the other category. This is made out of an assortment of yarns that I was gifted from Carla and Kat, and some that I had on hand. Like, this is quite the little like piecemeal of things. I've talked about this hat before. I absolutely love this hat. Mostly I really like the story about how this hat came to be. So my daughter turned 10 this year. hence the name Decadent, because she has been alive a decade. And so her and I decided that for her birthday, I would design a pattern for her and that she would help. So what I did is I went and I looked up the weather on every birthday that she had had. So there were 10 years of weather data as far as like, was it raining? Was it snowing? Was it partly cloudy? She's born in February, so especially in Kansas, snow is an actual option. And so it turned out there were 4 kinds of weather that were available for her birthdays. So she chose from the Stitch Dictionary 4 different patterns that she liked, and then we applied those in order with her birthdays. And it also then that determined the color striping pattern as well. So then it ends up with 10 segments. This pattern is actually available up on Patreon if you are part of Peachlet's Pattern Pile. It's up there. I really like it. My daughter actually made her own version of the Decadent Frenchie hat, which, by the way, the reason it's Decadent Frenchie, Decadent is because it was for her 10th birthday, and Frenchie is because when I made this one, which was my, like, the one I used for the pictures on the pattern and my ultimate, like, end test of the pattern, I put it on and it made me think of the line from Grease after Frenchie is in beauty school and she takes her hair down and the other waitress sees her and says, you know, you look like an Easter egg. So that's where it got the whole Frenchie thing, because I think that line is really funny. It amuses me, as one could guess. So anyways, my daughter made a Decadent Frenchie hat of her own. She just did it solid color out of a mill end that I had. Interestingly, she won the wool prize for that because it had a fiber content over 60% wool, and so there were only a couple other things that were qualified for that, but she got top wool and won some fabric for it, which is kind of cool, and we can use that next year because wool fabric is not cheap, and she got a decent amount of yardage for making a children's garment. So she made her hat. And so she got to tell the story of how we did the pattern when she was in judging, and the judge thought it was really neat, and the judge just liked to see somebody of her age doing something that was more intricate and, like, fun, I guess. Because this is not your normal, like, standard hat. It's slouchy, and then you can kind of make the bill. You can make it smaller, like beanie-like if you want, or you can wear it like super slouchy, which is kind of how I like to wear it. But she tried it on for them, and that was really fun. And so it was really exciting that we both did so well with our Decadent Frenchie hats for the fact we had teamed up. So maybe next year we'll try and do another kind of collab thing, because I think that ultimately makes that pattern like really special. So like I say, you might want to try making one of your own. Peachlet's Pattern Pile on Patreon. It's up there. Next is another pattern in progress. Well, this one is done, but the pattern is going to be coming very shortly to Patreon. This is going to be the pattern for year 2 of my Patreon, which has already started, but, you know, like I said, life went off the rails. I was in process on trying this out. This is the Joy Shawl, named for my word acronym of the year, joy, jovially occupying yourself, which, boy, am I trying to do with more effort than I had been before at this point. But it got a blue ribbon, and this fell into the stole crochet category. Stole is their way of saying shawl, so it counts anything that's like a wrap, shawl, what have you. This is some yarn that was gifted to me from Carla in that box that she sent for my birthday. And this is what the finished Joy Shawl will look like. This is a DK version. Whoop. But I like it. This particular shawl is not actually going to stay with me. It is going to wing its way to somebody else here shortly. But I wanted to enter it in the fair first because I did like the way it turned out. It turned out really, really nicely. They're just not really my colors, but I'm really happy with this pattern. And I'm happy to share it all with you as soon as I get it all written up. I'm working on that right now, actually. I have two more test versions in progress and just testing it out because I like to go through them multiple times before I release them into the world at this point. So the Joy Shawl is basically going to replace the Inspiritment. The Inspiritment which is the current shawl that all the patrons on my Patreon get access to. That will move into Peachless Pattern Pile, and the Joy shawl will be the new one that everybody who is a patron at $2 or more immediately gets access to. So that pattern will be added there, hopefully before September, before the September patrons. That is my plan. I feel like that's a manageable goal. So, the last thing on the list is this, which is my Afghan, my full-size Afghan. It got a blue ribbon in the Afghan crochet category. And this is actually the second time I entered this particular design of Afghan. So far, all of the other items that I entered, including my project bag, are designs of my own. Things that I came up with, I wrote the patterns for. I didn't follow anybody's patterns. This was like the one thing recently that I have followed a pattern for, and this is the Tides of Change by Franco Randall. It is a free pattern on Ravelry. I made one of these last year for my nephew for his high school graduation. His was made out of blues and grays and black, if you remember that from last year. It did not do as well as I had expected last year for the fact I thought it was a beautiful Afghan. So I decided I wanted one for myself, and I had a bunch of this yarn, which is Bernat Mosaic in the Optimistic colorway. And I had a bunch that I was ready to be done having. This yarn is discontinued. I've already made myself a top and a wrap, and my daughter has a skirt out of it, and we have a bunch of hats, and like, I've made all the things, and I still had more because I bought a case of this back in the day off the Spin Right E-Tent when that was still a thing, and I just hadn't used it all up. But this, my friends, used it all up. In fact, I didn't even make the full Tides of Change pattern. I stopped because I ran out of yarn. But it is plenty, plenty big, as you can see. I can't even show it all to you. It's so massive. And I was very happy that this year I finally got my Grand Champion Fiber Arts Award for this Afghan. So, that's exciting. I told Steve, well, now I've done it, I can stop, right? I got Grand Champion Fiber Arts. I've got Grand Champion Textiles. I should stop my fair career while I'm at it, right? But we all know that won't happen. I am fully intent on doing more things next year. I'm already thinking about what things I want to work on, what things I hope to enter. And I say this every year. I say that I want to start working on fair projects really early in the year, and that, you know, I'm going to get them out of the way. But I think this year I might actually do it. I'm thinking the Fairly Prepared series that I kind of started closer to the fair actually happening to try and like kick my butt into gear, that I might start it like now, like basically, and do intermittent videos maybe once a month, every 6 weeks, something like that, just to kind of get myself motivated to get the things done, because I do like having the larger projects to enter for the fair. I mean, a lot of the areas do lend themselves to being larger projects, which does mean I need to start sooner. Especially the things like the Afghan or sweater or that sort of thing. Now, the problem with starting things early is the idea that I was saying I don't wear the items, the garments and things until after the fair. With the exception, I had been wearing that Decadent Frenchie hat, but I hadn't anticipated that being my fair entry till I decided that I felt like it was good enough. But that's just, you know, a personal issue of not thinking any of these things were good enough to enter. And clearly they were just fine. So I have to figure out how to kind of balance the wanting to make the things in advance so that I have a large breadth of large items to enter in the fair, and also having things that are done that I can wear at the time that I want to wear them. Like, it's only really cold here in the winter. Obviously, that's true most places. But we actually have a winter where it's worth wearing, like woolly, yarny items. So it's hard for me to justify making a sweater and then not wearing it. So maybe I need to like look at a timeline of things and work on sweaters that I'm actually going to wear this winter, leading up to this winter. And then as winter ends, then maybe make the sweater for the fair. Maybe that would be a good way to do that. But like right now, I could totally work on an Afghan because I have a nice smooshy Afghan for myself already for this next year. So I could definitely make something and hold it. And then maybe plan to give it to somebody for Christmas. Not this Christmas, but next year. So, I don't know. There are definitely options, but I'm going to try and look into those options sooner rather than later to kind of have a plan. I also think that it'll be good to just not feel like I'm in a rush to get these things done, and I think my goal for next year is to do more than 7 projects. I feel like that is a doable goal because I was on track to do more than 7 as it was. So, next year, my goal is to enter more than 7 categories at the county fair. What those categories will be, I don't know. I will try probably to enter some things that are not just in the crochet fiber arts category and the sewing category, but we'll see. I also might branch out and enter some of the garment sewing categories next year. I don't know. I've thought about that. That's one of those categories where I'm worried that my sewing just really isn't good enough. My items are good. Like, I don't have like that problem. I tend to creatively craft, as you know, when it comes to yarn, and I do the same thing with fabric. So like I tend to want to use what I have on hand, which sometimes means that you might piece a section that you could have bought more yardage and had enough for, but I'm using what I have, so I make it work. Or just some of the finishing techniques, there are sometimes things where either they're going to use more fabric or take time that I don't have, and so I finish them very much good enough, but not to the specifications that a judge might be looking for. But I did look, and this year, one of the only garments that was entered in the open class was somebody entered a pair of pajama pants, and looking at them, just about anything I'd sewn this year could have been fine in that category. So I just think that I will have to give some consideration to maybe entering some more of those things and letting go of that feeling that these items are not good enough, because they are just fine. So I need to accept the just fineness and enter them, because it's not so much just about like winning awards, because yes, I did win small premiums for each of these. You get a small amount of money. I think I total got a check for like $21 in prize money between all of the things for the 7 items, like $3 a piece basically. Which obviously doesn't even cover the yarn for like any of them, though a lot of the yarn was gifted to me, so I guess it does. But it's not that I want to like win the awards. I just want to have made the stuff and turn it in, because I think that that's an interesting goal and I'm oddly fascinated with doing it. I also like there to be things to look at the fair. I think it's really, really sad at our county fair when you go in and there are open class, like cases that are mostly empty because there's just not people entering them. I would encourage you to look into your local county fairs. Some of them may not have even happened yet, and if they have, you will know more information for next year. So what you do is, if you live in the States and you are interested in your county fair, is look up your local county extension agent. You will find them. You can just look it up online. They are the same people who run 4-H. I was actually having a conversation with an extension officer at the fair about like being involved in a more like national fiber arts community and encouraging people to join the fair. And she was like, yes, that is what we need. We need people talking about it from one county to another, because some counties are obviously more active than others. But all fairs want people to participate, because if we don't participate in our local county fairs, they eventually will die out. And that is a sad, sad thing, because there are so many great opportunities, especially for youth, to be not only showing their items, but to see the potential that they can do in a number of areas, arts and crafts wise, fiber arts wise, sewing wise, as well as there's like a whole bunch of robotic and technical things. There's a bunch of woodworking things. There's all of the plant sciences, vegetable sciences, cooking. There's just a lot of stuff, and I think it's really interesting to keep your mind open to all of the different hobbies and potentially job opportunities that you can find in these areas that you don't always think about. So I think that county fairs are super important, and now I will get off of my soapbox about them. But, I mean, you should just be aware. I'm pro county fair and you hear about it all the time. So I should be done now so that I can go back to crafting things for not the county fair, because I've been working on those a lot. Though I do have some things that were fair projects that didn't get finished. But the nice thing is, since I didn't finish them this year, I can still finish them and enter them in next year's county fair, and it will be totally legal. So I have some that actually, that might be what happens. I might just wait a little while and finish them, or just finish them and put them aside just to be ready for next year, because they're things that I don't necessarily need in my life every day, but would have fulfilled a category and then could be gifted to someone in my life. So I hope that you enjoyed hearing my county fair recap. These episodes are always fairly lengthy. If you have questions about the county fair or anything else, let me know down below. I'm terrible at replying to comments, but I will try and reply to the comments of those nature here, because like I say, it's my weird quirky passion, the county fair. So anyways, I hope you all are having a lovely whenever, and that you enjoyed the outdoors with me here on my porch, and I will see you all next time. Bye!